Good morning. Good morning. It is 9 a.m. East Coast time, 6 a.m. Pacific. To everybody in the Central Time Zone, Mountain Time Zone, good morning to you. This is Anton Gunn. Welcome to Leadership Live every Wednesday, giving you some news that you can use, some insights that will help you to be more effective as a leader with your team in the organization that you're in, or how to navigate many of the difficult things that happen in the workplace. It's important to navigate those difficult things that happen in the workplace because you want to create a culture that is inclusive, that is inspiring, that is empowering. So people never want to quit. They want to stay there because they feel valued, they feel respected, they feel included, and they feel visible. And it all starts with you as a leader and what you do. And so today, I want to talk about something that I hear a lot about from people. And you probably hear a lot about it. But many times you don't necessarily know what it is or know what to do about it. And that is navigating microaggressions in the workplace as a leader. Now, when I say navigating microaggressions in the workplace, I want to unpack this in multiple ways and give you 4 things to do, things to think about. These are not all of the only things that you need to be doing and thinking about, but I want to give you something tangible that you can use right now, particularly as a leader in a leadership role. Now, before I do that, I want to make sure that I unpack why this is important. See, microaggressions sound small because you're using the word micro. And I am going to define it for you today that they are small slights, verbal, nonverbal, environmental, social things that you do as a leader or that you allow people in your organization to do as a leader. And these things seem insignificant in the moment when they happen, but over time, they build up to be monumental things that can lead to so many negative outcomes. Now, when I say so many negative outcomes, I know that there are organizations that have allowed microaggressions to go on so long by so many people that group of employees who are many times marginalized, they're either persons of color, they fit some definition of diverse, they are underrepresented in the workforce. So it could be people of color, it could be women, it could be people with disabilities, it could be a wide variety of people, maybe that speak English as a second language. But these microaggressions get so pervasive in a workplace that group of employees files a class action lawsuit and they win. They win. Not only that, the people who are marginalized by microaggressions, they literally get so upset that they can't take it anymore. And when they can't take it anymore, they can do several things. And I'm going to talk about one of these things in particular, but I'm going to give you all 3 of them. Number 1, they could just straight up disengage at work, which is this place doesn't respect me. They don't value me. They treat me with disrespect by microaggressing against me every day. So you know what? I'm just going to disengage. I'm going to check out and keep collecting my paycheck. I'm going to do the bare minimum every day just to get paid because I need my job and I need my money and I'm not ready to quit right now, but I'm not doing nothing extra. I'm just going to check out. Second thing they do, they can say, you know what? I am going to leave. I'm just going to get out right away because as soon as I can get out, because I don't want to work at a place where I don't feel valued, respected, included, and visible. And there's actually some research out there that shows that 70% of employees that were surveyed said that if they experience a microaggression at work, they will think about leaving. Like 70% of people said, if I experience microaggressions at work, I'm going to think about leaving. And then half of those people actually do leave. So if we doing the math, let's just say 70% of your workforce, let's say you got 100 people that work on your team, and 70% of them experience a microaggression and they think about leaving. That's 70 people of your 100 that's thinking about leaving. But 35% of them actually leave. 50% of them actually leave. So you're going to lose a third of your team because you've created a culture that it is okay to microaggress against people. Now, when I say it's okay to microaggress against people, I want you to know it's not just people of color who experience microaggressions. Everybody experiences microaggressions. White men experience microaggressions too. White women experience microaggressions too. Everybody's experiencing it. And I'm going to talk in a little bit detail to try to give you a little bit of education about what some of these microaggressions look like. But I want you to know, overarching, if you don't do something about them, if you don't take action as a leader, if you don't respond to them as a leader, you're creating a toxic culture, a hostile environment where people might just quit or they might just check out. And God forbid, we have seen this too. Oh my, we have seen this. And we don't want to acknowledge that it's connected to this, but it is. There are people who experience microaggressions at work every day, and it just gets to a tipping point, a breaking point, a boiling point, and they come into work and they commit violence. Sometimes they just fight the aggressor. Other times they act out at work. And they have also come in with guns or with knives, and they have shot people at work, stabbed people at work, not just fighting, but taking deadly force to the workplace because of how they're being treated, how they're being microaggressed against. So I want you to know this is real. This is reality. So wake up. And as a leader, you need to be aware of what's going on as related to microaggressions in your workplace. And more importantly, you need to be doing something about it. So today's live, if you will, are 4 keys, if you will, 4 things that you need to think about as a leader as it relates to microaggressions. Because you could be committing these microaggressions, or you could just be allowing them to happen on your team, in your organization. And so I want you to wake up, get educated, talk about it, listen and learn. But more importantly, I want you to lead by example. Those are the 4 things that I'm going to lay out for you. So let's focus on education. I don't know why my neck is itching, but let's focus on education. I want you to know the first key to navigating microaggressions in the workplace is to educate yourself about these microaggressions. And when I mean educate yourself, they evolve and change as culture evolves and change, because things that were okay to say 5 years ago ain't okay to say today. And things that are okay to say today may not be okay to say tomorrow. And definitely things that were said in the workplace 40 years ago ain't okay to say today. But many times when I say we, yours truly included, we say microaggressions all the time and don't even believe that they're microaggressions. Or we'll say things to people that we think are, culturally okay, or we think they get it and they understand it. But depending on which generation you're in, it could be a microaggression. And definitely if you're a person that fit that definition of diversity. So I want to walk through a few phrases that I know you have heard and other phrases that I know you have probably said that could be deemed microaggressions by the person who's hearing it and who you're saying it to. So here's the first one out of the gate. This is one that I know if you're Black in the United States of America, this is one that is offensive to you, is you're so well spoken. You're so well spoken. Okay. And for my folks who are diverse and they speak English as a second language, or maybe they fit some ethnic diversity that is not based in the United States, or they from an Asian country or some other country, Hispanic country, they'll hear this one that says, "Oh, you speak good English. How'd you learn to speak English so good?" That's a microaggression. That's definitely a microaggression. Here's a microaggression that most people don't know that is a microaggression against many times white men is that, "Oh, you got it so good in life. You ain't gonna have no problem getting a promotion." You know, and we know that the data shows that they do get more promotions than everybody else, but the person you're talking to, you don't know what they've gone through. You don't know the challenges that they have. And also the assumption that a white person is not poor. Or so you might say something offensive like, "Well, I know you ain't got no money problems in your life." That could be a microaggression because you don't know where they come from. You don't know anything about them. So that's just a couple of others, but I have, more that I'm going to share with you. And again, I'm going back to some old presentation notes. I wish I could put it on the screen, but I didn't prepare to do all of that. I just came to talk to you. So I already told you, you speak good English is a microaggression, or you're so articulate and well-spoken, microaggression. And the people who say this one, "I don't see race," or "I don't see color." Whenever you say you don't see race or you don't see color, you know what you're actually saying? You're saying that you don't see me and you don't see what makes me different. And seeing what makes me different is not necessarily a negative. It means that you acknowledge my difference and that my difference is valuable. What makes me different is valuable. But when you say, "I don't see race" or "I don't see color," that's a microaggression. Or this one that we all know we've heard, "I'm not a racist. I got several black friends." Like, just because you got a black friend, that don't mean you are racist. Or the people who say, "You know what? I'm not a misogynist because I'm friends with lots of women." That don't make it so. Or a new word that I learned, misandrous. I didn't even know what that word was until I think last year I heard that the first time. I'm not a misandrist, I'm married, or I grew up with three brothers. Just because you've been around men doesn't mean you have a disdain and a hate for men. You can have it all. Okay. Here's some other ones, old school ones here that we all have heard before. "You people," referring to people as "you people." I literally had that happen to me with an attorney recently who referred to me as "you people." And I had to declare, "Who are you talking about as you people?" And he was referring to several black folks that's involved in this organization. He didn't want to admit it, but I caught him. So again, these are microaggressions. Here's another one, Indian giver. Okay. That's offensive. Indian giver is offensive. Or, "That's so gay." Or as the young kids would say sometimes, "You're a little zesty with that." That could be offensive. That's a microaggression. And here's one from my folks who literally come from diverse countries like India and other places. They hear this one all the time. "What's your real name?" No, don't give me your American name. Give me your real name. What's your real name? And for my friends in the LGBTQ plus community, is "That's so gay." That's a microaggression. Or, "When did you decide to be a woman? When did you choose to be a woman or a man?" Like, all of these things are microaggressions. And here's one that we all forget about. And when I mean we all forget about, we don't think about it, we don't talk about it, we just let it go. You ever been somewhere and they work with a person who has a Jamaican accent or a Gullah Geechee accent or Hispanic accent, and we literally try to imitate that accent? That we're not from Jamaica or we're not of the Gullah Geechee community, but we'll try to talk like a person from Jamaica or the Gullah Geechee community to a person who is authentically from those communities. That's a microaggression. We might think it's flattering. It's not. The only way you could ever be flattering with that is if they didn't speak the language of English at all, they spoke Spanish or Portuguese or Hebrew or whatever, and you're trying to learn a language and you're trying to speak to them in their language, not imitate an English accent of a person speaking Spanish or an imitation of a Spanish accent, a Portuguese accent, and you're still speaking English, but authentically trying to communicate in their language. That's not a microaggression. You're trying to be respectful, learn the language, and communicate with them in a language that they prefer. But when you imitate Jamaican accents, what the blood clot? How many people have done that? Because you can watch the movie Marked for Death with Steven Seagal that has some of the biggest stereotypes of Jamaican people I've ever seen in my life. But it's one of my favorite movies. Not for that, but for the martial arts is why I love the movie. But my point is, I want you to understand that there are lots of microaggressions out there. You need to educate yourself on those microaggressions. Now, if you've ever experienced a microaggression and you feel comfortable, I want you to type it in the chat so people can see some of the things people have done to microaggress against you. Or if you have a boss who has microaggressed against you, a leader on your team that has done that, or if you've seen some other ones, this is the time to share so we can learn about some of these microaggressions. But I'm telling you right now, as a leader, you got to educate yourself on microaggressions. Sometimes these microaggressions come related to people's resume. So when I say resume, you look at somebody's resume and see that they went to an Ivy League school and they happen to be a person of color. And you look at the resume and say, oh, how you get in that school? As if they're now smart enough or skilled enough to get into that school, or they got some kind of preferential treatment to be able to get that job. Here's one that is used in the workplace a lot. We should only interview qualified people for the position. Well, duh, everybody know you want qualified people. But by you saying it, are you insinuating that the person of color, the woman that is in front of you, is not qualified and they're being given an opportunity because they're just a woman or a person of color? Everybody's qualified for the job if they meet the minimum qualifications. But you saying things, I believe that we should select the most qualified person for the position. Duh. Who doesn't believe that? Who wants somebody who's not qualified in the role? Nobody. But your biases put you in a position where you start to microaggress against people the way you think. So as a leader, point number one, I've overemphasized it for the first few minutes of this, you have to educate yourself about microaggressions. There are plenty of books that you can read about microaggressions, websites you can review. There's Harvard Business Review articles about microaggressions in the workplace. I'm just giving you a few of them. Another one that I know I have used several times and probably do it routinely because I come from a generation where that was okay, is when people say the word, that's crazy, that's insane, okay? Or you're insane. Like you could say that to a person, man, you insane. You crazy as hell. They will say those things, right? But not acknowledging and recognizing that that person might actually have mental illness or behavioral health challenge that they're dealing with in the workplace. Or the people who love to say, I got ADHD. Ain't never been diagnosed in their life. Don't know if they really got ADHD. Or will talk about other people. That's why you can't pay attention to them because you got ADHD. These are all microaggressions, things that we do. And we don't know how offensive we are in doing these things. But the reason why I'm giving it to you right now is because I want you to educate yourself as a leader. We all need to educate ourselves. We need to wake up to understand that these things can create a hostile environment in the workplace that will minimally make people quit. That's at a minimum, or at least make them think about quitting. But they could disengage from your work, or they could act out because you're acting out. Like microaggressions can lead to counterproductive workplace behaviors. Now, I'm telling y'all a little hints of some stuff, some research I'm going to be sharing about in the month of June. I've done some great research on a lot of things that people are experiencing in the workplace and how it's impacting employers, but more importantly, how I'm prepared and committed to help you to do something about it. That's the passion of my life. So I'm just telling you here now, educate yourself about these injustices. Educate yourself about these microaggressions that are happening. That is key number one. Education is the key. Now, after you educate yourself, the second thing you need to do as a leader is you need to open up the lines of communication and you need to communicate about it. So if you're sitting in a meeting and somebody says something like, well, we should only choose the most qualified person for the job, your response as a leader needs to be, well, of course, we would only choose the most qualified person on the job. And there are plenty of women, diverse applicants, people with disabilities, people, members of the LGBTQ community who are qualified to do this work. So I hope you weren't insinuating that if we picked a candidate that fits some definition of diversity, that they are not qualified. That sometimes will put people on the back of their heels. Now, you may not need to do it like that. I know I would do it like that, but you may not be confident in your language around in order to be able to do that. So I'm not telling you to do that. But the point is, you need to be open about microaggressions. You need to talk about them when you learn about them. You can literally say in your next team meeting, did you know I learned on a live video from Anton Gunn on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. that sometimes saying you are insane can be a microaggression against people who might have mental or behavioral health challenges, disorders that they have been diagnosed with. And me referring to me having ADHD when I've never been diagnosed with having ADHD could be a slight to people who are dealing with that because they know I really don't have ADHD and they're struggling with it every day, but they got a boss that comes in and talks about his ADHD or her ADHD. You got to be open about this. And then sometimes when you see these things happen to other people, when you see a colleague or a coworker microaggress against another colleague or coworker, then you got to find the right language to deal with that situation. Sometimes it could be calling people out or calling people in. Now, I've talked about this before. Like when I say calling people out, it's putting them on blast in a meeting for saying a microaggression against somebody, especially if this is a person who you've already called in. Now, here's what calling in is after the meeting is over with or after the email was read, you send them a note, hey, can you jump on the Zoom for a quick minute? Or can you come by my office? Or I'm happy to come down to your office. Come down to the office, close the door and say, hey, I'm not sure if you meant any harm by what you said, but I want you to know, referring to John in a dialect that you use, knowing that he's from another country, that's a microaggression. Or using his dialect and you don't really speak that's a microaggression. That is insensitive, and we shouldn't be doing that in the workplace. And I just want to let you know, I know you probably didn't mean anything harm about it. Your intent was not bad, but your impact is bad because John came to me. Now, when I mean John came to you, open communication about microaggressions means you need to make sure your team knows that they can come to you and talk to you if they've experienced any microaggressions. You want them to know that you're creating an inclusive, safe environment for everybody. And if you feel uncomfortable because people are using language or doing things behaviorally, environmentally that are isolating you or mistreating you or making you feel slighted in some kind of way, know that my door is always open and you can come and talk to me about it because I believe that we need to eliminate microaggressions from the workplace as much as possible. See, if you master that kind of language and you're open about it as a leader, then what is it going to do is create the space for people to be open to you. And when they're open to you, you got to know how to talk about these things. You got to use the words that work. And I actually have created a document called Words That Work. It's a free resource that I give to people called Words That Work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it into the comment section after this live. I can't do it right now because I'm talking to you, but I'm going to drop it in the comment section, in the notes section, for you to know how to use words that work. These are words that will help you communicate about difficult subjects like race. I created it after the 2020 death of George Floyd, because so many people wanted to talk about race at work, but they didn't have the right words. And as a leader, you got to learn the language to talk about these things so you don't further offend because you don't know what to say. Again, educate yourself, master communication. That's the second key. The third key is when somebody comes to you and tells you that Susan in marketing is a master microaggressor, that she has been doing this every day, all day, and I think she's doing it on purpose. You got to learn how to listen to what your team is telling you about people on your team and in your organization. That's the big challenge. Exactly. You got to listen to what people are saying. You got to know that they are telling you what's going on in the workplace, what's going on with this person, what this person is saying and what they're doing. Or if they're telling you that Bob is being bullied at work or ostracized at work because he is Muslim, and every time we go to Jim and Nick's barbecue and we get pork barbecue ribs and hash and slaw, that he knows that we're doing it on purpose so he don't come to the happy hour. He don't come to the luncheon. Because yes, that's a microaggression too. I'm telling y'all stuff that I have seen and heard about with client organizations, that you know someone is Jewish or Muslim, that they don't eat pork, but intentionally to get on their nerves, you bring in pork food for the potluck, or you only order from the barbecue spot so they don't eat and they don't come. The same thing happens with vegans or vegetarians, right? That we will hear somebody is vegan or vegetarian, so the only thing we bring is the vegetable tray from Publix with some carrots and some broccoli and some nasty 2-week-old ranch dressing. That's the only thing that we have. We don't really have a vegan dish or a vegetarian dish. You know what I mean? These are all microaggressions. So when people are telling you that your people on your team are doing bad stuff to get on people's nerves and get under their skin, believe that they're doing that. Like, I even heard stories in public education where teachers were microaggressing against certain students so they would act out in class, so they would have a reason to put them out of class. Yeah, we know that's real. That teachers, adults, people will say and do things to get under a person's skin intentionally so they would act out, so you could blame it on them and that they're part of the problem. And these things happen in the workplace. My research shows it, that people literally are marginalizing folks, microaggressing against folks in the workplace in hopes that they would quit, in hopes that they would act up and curse somebody out in a meeting. So now they got a reason to fire them. So you got to listen as a leader. You got to know. Because when you listen and hear these things are going on and you know somebody is acting out in that way, you got a couple options. Number one, you need to counsel or coach those bad actors into improving their behavior. You got to talk to them before somebody's fist put a spark to them, mess around and it get dark to them, lose a major part to them. Yeah, that was a biggie line. Some of y'all got it, some of y'all didn't. But you got to talk to these bad actors. So when you hear your team tell you something, that somebody's doing something bad, you might have to coach them, counsel them, trying to train them up, get them corrected in their behavior. Or you might need to do something more intensive, like bring me in or some other trainer or presenter who can talk to you about microaggressions and how they're impacting your culture. And when y'all see this research that I've done, the data points in this research will provide you enough insight that whatever you're doing in training and leadership development to build a world-class culture, you're not doing enough. And you might need to change what you need to do. And I'd be happy to help you with that. So if you're interested in having me speak at an event or talk to your leaders, or maybe come talk more about this, then send me a direct message, put something in the comments, and I'd be happy to follow up. But number 3, you got to be an active listener. And I'm closing here with a little bit less than 1 minute left. The 4th thing I want you to do is I want you to lead by example. The 4 key is leading by example, which is don't be a microaggressor yourself. Number 1, don't commit these acts because people will see what you do and duplicate what you do. So you need to be a leader and lead by example. Minimize your microaggressions, learn about them so you don't commit them. Figure out if you're using offensive language, if you're saying things that could be bothersome to people, that could be having a negative impact, and then be strong enough, courageous enough to say, hey, I learned a lot about microaggressions listening to Anton Gunn on his live on Wednesday morning. I want to know, do you know what microaggressions are? And if everybody on your team nods their head and say, I know what microaggressions are, then be bold enough to ask this next question. Have I ever microaggressed against any of you? If so, it's okay to tell me now because I really want to hear. I want to know, am I saying things that make you feel like I don't value you, that I don't respect you, that you're not a welcome and included member as a part of this team? Tell me if I've said a microaggression. Then shut up and listen. See what your people will say to you. If you're the kind of leader that has created an open, psychologically safe environment, they might tell you that your stuff stinks, that you use the wrong words, that you use words that hurt rather than words that work. And if they tell you that, that is when your professional journey begins. Your professional development journey begins. Is to rid those things from your vocabulary. And you might have to unlearn some things that you've learned all your life. There was one, microaggression that I didn't even talk about today that I should in the context of everything that's going on with Israel and Hamas, is that people say, man, you Jewed me down. Jewed me down as in trying to force the price down. That's a stereotype and a trope that Jews are cheap and they want to save their money. But we say microaggressions like that every day. You Jewed me down. Those things are wrong. But many times we don't know it. We think it's okay. And we can easily get on the wrong side of people in the workplace to create bigger problems like lawsuits. You don't want your company sued because you can't control your mouth and because you refuse to educate yourself. You don't want to lose 50% of your team or 30% of your team because you microaggress every day and people don't like working for somebody who's a Neanderthal. That could be a microaggression too, if you're a Neanderthal. But I think we've all evolved from beyond Neanderthal. And that's my term to say, if you ain't bright, if you're not trying to educate yourself, if you're choosing to stay ignorant rather than be educated on microaggressions, people don't want to work for you. It's time out for that. And if you lose your team, you're going to be less productive, less impactful. You're not going to get your bonus. You're not going to achieve your goals. And then everybody's going to be looking at you as a problem because you can't keep people. And then again, the worst case scenario is that because you refuse to grow up as a leader, you're microaggressing against people, that they come into work and commit violence. They fight, they flip over tables. And God forbid, they pull out a weapon and use it on somebody at work because of the environment being so hostile. So I didn't intend to get super serious this morning. I wanted to help you, wanted to give some value to you, but I hope you got some value out of this. I hope it made sense for you. I hope that you got clear that we all can experience microaggressions and we all can commit microaggressions. There's no monopoly on this. Then the people who are less aware, socially conscious will commit more of them, but we all can. I have. That's right. Great comment from Van Zel that we only speak proper English in this office. what is proper English? Let me be clear. None of us in the United States of America live in England, number one. So the Queen's English or the King's English, we haven't spoken that since the 1800s, 1700s, actually, probably since we got here. So what is proper English? Get over that. You speak the language that is inclusive for your team and your culture. Because if you were really speaking proper English, let me tell you this, you wouldn't be using all them acronyms that y'all use at work. I remember when I was in the federal government in the Obama administration, we had an acronym for everything. SAMHSA, FAFSA, ACF, CDC, DOD. You think about all of those acronyms, right? Regular people don't know what those things mean. Who knows what a FAFSA is if you don't have kids that's going to college? You don't know what a FAFSA is. So we use a lot of acronyms that are not proper English. These are words that we made up for the culture to make it easy for us to say. These colloquialisms are internal, not external. So there you have it. Hope this has added some value to you. I'm going to let you all go today. I appreciate your time and your attention. Again, tune in next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. Wednesday for Leadership Live, for some news and information and insights that you can use. If you want more of this, you want to read more about microaggressions and the 4 ways to navigate it, you can check out my blog post this week. Go to antongunn.com/blog. I wrote a short blog about this. In that blog is the link to the Words That Work document and also some other ways that I can help you. So with that, everybody have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.